And we're live. We are live now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this channel. This is my second channel. It's not my main channel. My main channel has a strike, hence why I cannot hold a Hangout there. This is my cartoon channel. If you're sub to this channel, and it's just a channel that I'm using right now for live Hangouts. I haven't had a chance to do any cartoons for a while. They do take months to create. And today we have with us is Inventor Gorilla, Cal Kane, I hope I said that right, and Trollollen, who is under a different...
He was staring at his hot Star Wars chicks across from his house, dancing and laughing, and they're very hot dancing.
Now he has to rub it in.
Oh, keep dancing, girls. That's the way. Jiggy, 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 jiggy. A jiggy, jiggy, jiggy. That's for the troll. That's for the troll.
Okay. Well, today we're going to be doing a debate discussion. I have my stopwatch here, so if we will not be talking over one another, we'll give each other a chance to talk and say our little spiel. And basically the discussion will be the flaws with theism and atheism and things like that. It'll be a general topic. It's not going to be specific, so there's a little bit of range there, taking it to however you want. Hopefully the winner will be you guys, the audience, so we can hopefully give you something to chew over at least. So I'll start the discussion with Cal, and you can get us underway when you're ready.
Awesome, fantastic. If you're wondering what I was doing just out of the shot there, I was just rolling a cigarette. I wasn't doing anything completely immoral. Yeah, basically, I think atheism is whenever anyone hears the word atheist, they kind of think that it actually defines someone as a human being, and in quite a big way. And I think also when someone refers to themselves as an atheist, they think it's a kind of mark and a badge of honor to be worn. And they think that everyone else who's an atheist is automatically associated with them and is automatically going to agree with every single position. I think this is absolutely just completely fallacious nonsense, basically. It doesn't really mean anything. Atheism is simply a single position on a single claim. It's if you don't believe that gods exist, you're an atheist. And it's really, really as simple as that. It doesn't have anything to do with believing in evolution. It doesn't have anything to do with morality or positions on abortion or positions on stem cell research or any of that shit. It doesn't have anything to do with that whatsoever. It's literally a single position on a single claim. And you'll hear a lot of religious people saying things like, you know, oh, you must. I think it's William Dembski. I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy. He's he's not the greatest guy in the world, but he puts out a lot of crap about atheists having to believe in evolution and thinking that evolution is somehow synonymous with atheism, which it just clearly is not. You get a lot of religious people shooting off this nonsense, but you also get a lot of atheists that'll kind of keep this fallacy going as well, because they seem to presume, from my experience, I mean my very limited subjective experience, that every single atheist that they're going to meet is going to agree with them on every single issue that they can possibly think of. There's a lot, and also there seems to be this misconception that atheists are smarter, that they're more moral and they are superior in just about every way you can think of to religious people. And I think this is an illusion that needs to be shattered pretty quickly, because believing in God, though in my opinion it's an irrational belief, most definitely, it's definitely an irrational belief in my opinion, but that's just a belief. People are not defined by one single belief. Human beings are walking beliefs. Beliefs do inform our actions, but it's not just a single belief. That would be insane if every single action that you take was just based on if you believe in a supernatural intervening deity. It would be insane, just in the same way as if you don't believe in that type of deity. And I think this is a real problem that's affecting the atheist community, and it's affecting the religious community, because I think we need to come up with a new type of atheism. I think atheism is just not enough. It's such a broad term, it's not specific enough. I think there should be a thing called specific atheism, or justified atheism, because for someone to just say, I don't believe in God or gods, is a really silly position to take, because what have you actually investigated all these gods? Have you read the religious texts? Have you spoken to people that follow the gods? Most of the time people will just say either Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, and maybe Buddhism and Hinduism if you're lucky. But if you haven't read the central texts,
I
and
agree
if
with
you haven't read this, thanks, man. If you haven't read the individual texts, if you haven't actually taken time to do at least a little bit of research into what the Bible promotes, or what the Torah, or what the Bhagavad Gita, or whatever holy text you want to read, it doesn't. You can't actually justify yourself as being an atheist. You really, really can't. It's an unjustified position to take, just because it seems. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction when an atheist uses the word God. They instantly go, no, 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 that automatically can't be true. Absolutely not, because I've read the Bible and I can conclusively prove, I can prove to myself there is no God, and that also means that all the other gods are wrong just by association. No, it's an unjustified position to take. It would be very, very it's unjustified for me to say that I don't believe in Allah, because I haven't read enough of the Quran. I haven't spoke to enough Muslims. I'm not justified in having that position. I'm more justified in having that position because I actually spend my time talking to Christians. I invite Jehovah's Witnesses into my house. I'm friends with religious people. I read the Bible just about every day. So that would be justified atheism in my book. But for me to be atheist in regards to Buddhism would be really, really a dishonest position to take, because I don't know enough about Buddhism, and I haven't spent enough time with them and read the central text. And that's me done.
All right, cool. That was actually only 5 minutes. That was excellent, man. That was an excellent beginning.
Thank
if
you.
I duck off, it's because I've got to take the cat off the laundry, because for the viewers out there, she's just got back from the vet, and she's got a big bucket on her head and had half her tail amputated, so she's not doing too well, but she's getting there. But anyway, IG, if you would like to kick off your opening statements, you can have up to 10 minutes. But if you need to go on a bit longer if you want, just let us know and we'll make it happen.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know, I am a theist. I believe there is a God. I think it's just as rational to believe in a God than it is to not believe in a God. I don't have a problem with the atheist perspective. I believe people when they say that they haven't seen evidence, or they haven't seen enough proof to convince them. But I do have a problem with people who use their atheism to ridicule religious people. Just because one person hasn't seen enough proof or evidence to believe in a God doesn't make the theist an idiot, a foolish, irrational, or retarded. It just means that you haven't had the same experiences, you don't have the same perspective as the theist, and that's fine. And that's why I think we need to have more of these types of discussions, where instead of having echo chambers of theists and echo chambers of atheists and all these different separate echo chambers, I think it's good to bring people together and share their experiences and share their points of view. Now, personally, I think everybody, by definition, if you want to be intellectually honest, is an atheist. But there are people that, because you cannot know, there's no way to know whether God exists or doesn't exist. Let's be intellectually honest here. I say that I believe God exists. I don't say that I know. And I think that many atheists would do well to say that I don't believe God exists, not that I know. And I've seen a lot of backpedaling in the last year or so by the atheist community, backing off of this this idea that, well, if you're talking about the Christian Judeo God, I can disprove this God. Well, no. All you can do is say you don't like that God, or you disagree with that God. You can't disprove God because you disagree, or you have a personal difference with your perception or your interpretation of what the scripture says. And I think more importantly, instead of arguing over whether theism is better or atheism is better, I think these labels are pretty much meaningless. When we break down what makes up a human being and the qualities of a human being, whether you believe in God or you don't, really is a small part of that person. Because I think we've all seen how there are douchebag theists, there are douchebag atheists, and the numbers are pretty equivalent in that aspect. So I think what's most important is to come together on things that we agree upon. Come together on human rights, on what's fair for everyone, so that we can all live together under the same roof called planet Earth.
That's right.
I
agree with that.
These labels don't mean anything. How we treat each other is what's meaningful.
Yes, man, that's where the meaning is.
Instead of arguing over atheism or theism, why don't we have a discussion on, okay, well, how do we treat everybody fairly? How do we try to make sure that everyone has the same rights? And how do we work past our differences to make the world a better place? Arguing against Christianity or Islam or against atheism does nothing in the direction of human progress. As a matter of fact, I think it brings us back to this intellectual stone age of throwing rocks and sticks at each other, calling each other names, because that's all I see happening in the great debate community. So, yeah, that's basically my 2 cents. It's really irrelevant whether you're an atheist or a theist. What's relevant is how we treat each other and how we find common ground to make positive change.
Okay. Is that all you'd like to say? You've got another 5 minutes if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Well said, man.
Well, I'll just reset that timer. Okay, well, I guess it's my turn to do my opening statement. And my opening statement will be along the lines of, and I agree a lot with what Cal and IG are saying, but I also say that I think one of the problems is that people are misguided by a trend, or they're misguided by an idea where one idea means that that's the whole idea, rather than taking away the good bits and saying, but I want to have those values and I want to use that. Or they get associated with people that aren't really in accordance to what they're talking about. A lot of the times you talk to these YouTube atheists, a lot of them will stand and they'll rattle their sabers and they'll fight to tooth and nail to the death for their point. But in the end of the day, I think if you talk to them off camera, they would probably agree a lot more with a rational view in that you can have all-encompassing views in the world quite comfortably, and no one has to be eradicated, no one has to be hated upon. I mean, who's to say who's right and who's wrong? Who's to say that there isn't a God? I mean, we use science as our backing for that, but that doesn't make science right. Science has been wrong more times than it's been right. And what we need to sort of say to ourselves is, so these people believe in Allah, so these people believe in Krishna, so these people believe in, I'm not going to say Yahweh, because I think Yahweh doesn't really depict the true Christian God. I'd say the true Christian God would just be referred to as God. And it's just more or less a higher power that's looking out for you. And to me, Jesus is good. And to me, I find that I actually like the idea of a God out there. To me, even if I don't know it exists, to me it's a more comforting feeling knowing that there is more to life than what we see and do and smell and all of that. And to me, it's more about how I can live as a person and the problem that I see at the moment, mainly with religion and anti-religion, is the fact is that they're so hell-bent on destroying each other that what they don't realise is that they're destroying themselves. And all these people like Bionic Dance and, you know, it's sad to say, even though I like the guy, TJ from The Amazing Atheist, they stand there and they will point out the absolute horrible flaws in religion, but they won't say the good things that they do. They won't tell them about the soup kitchens that they set up. They won't tell them about, you know, all the people that they've helped people reform in jails and things like that. And that's something that atheism just can't say that it has right now. So my impression at the moment is that unfortunately people have had a misguided view where they have to take one side, but they can't, because of the way things are set up right now, that they can't feel like they can sort of accept the other view, even though probably deep down they already do, and they've been living with that for a long time. They just don't want to say it. I don't know if that quite gets my point across. I'm happy with that as my opening statement. G-Man's just joined us, and G-Man, while you get yourself set up, basically the conversation is the flaws in both theism and atheism, whatever ones you see and why, and it's just basically trying to identify for the people how to have a more rational mind when it comes to deciding what it is that you are comfortable with in your life, I guess, whatever sits with you. And yeah, you get, I've got a stopwatch, but everyone's been doing about 5-minute spiels at the start. You can have up to 10. Yeah, if you want, yeah. You can have up to 10 minutes.
No, I'll just listen for a little bit and then I'll jump in.
Okay. Trollolin is actually an ex-Muslim. Is there anything you would like to add, Troll? Like,
I'm gonna kill you and your family, infidel, kafir.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, Troll's here just to help moderate, and if he wants you, you know, just chip in whenever you feel like.
You can all argue with each other. Yeah, it's fine with me. Kill each other.
I'd rather not. But I'd rather everyone got their time to speak, and everyone.
Just Thunderdome, 2 men in and 1 man leaves.
Okay, well, Cal, we may as well jump back to you. Is there anything that you would like to say?
I think the one thing that I maybe should have said in my opening statement would be that the I can't remember who said about following trends. I think it was IG that said that said something about for the atheists following trends and kind of looking for like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was IG that said that just before. The thing for me is that I fell for this when I first started getting into atheism. Like, I think I've been an atheist all my life, really, but I didn't know that I was an atheist. I didn't subscribe to it, and I did for a long time. It was a TV show, The Atheist Experience, that actually had that actually got me into atheism, and I found myself really, really, I wouldn't say worshipping, but putting guys like Matt Dillahunty on a pedestal, and kind of like, even if Dillahunty said something that I couldn't, that I disagreed with, I'd kind of just back it, even though I didn't really understand it or even didn't disagree with it. So yeah, there's a lot of trend setting that comes on with atheism, and I think shows like The Atheist Experience are actually really not good for the expansion of atheism in any way, shape, or form. Because Matt Dillahunty, if you've ever watched The Atheist Experience, he's not like, he's a fairly nice guy, but he's pretty aggressive. He's got a habit of he's got a habit of swearing at people. He's got a habit of swearing full stop, and I think whenever you have to swear to get your point across, you've kind of demoted your own argument, you know.
It's unprofessional. That's why it's not good to do
incredibly unprofessional. Like, you know, that, like, I was having this conversation with a guy. I can't remember his name now. I'd been having this conversation, and I ended up actually telling him to just, you know, F off, basically. And then 2 seconds later, well, 2 comments later, I said, look, I really shouldn't have said that. I just lost my composure and I got my cage rattled a little bit. But Matt Dillahunty doesn't really seem to apologize for his behavior, and he's got a major habit of talking over people and kind of being if there's ever an example of an extreme atheist, I think Matt Dillahunty definitely is an advocate of that. Maybe he doesn't mean to come across like that, but he comes across as being very intellectually aggressive. He bullies people, and he's quite high up in the atheist community of Austin, Texas, and I think he gives atheists a bad name because, unfortunately, members of the general public tend to go with what people say on TV programs or what the media tells them or what they just believe is right. And atheists are very, very, very prone to this as well because they are just members of the general public. Whether or not they're atheists doesn't have any bearing on that. And if there's youngsters out there looking at Matt Dillahunty and going, "All right, this is a good way for me to advocate atheism. I should call any theist that disagrees with me a moronic a-hole, just because Matt Dillahunty done it." That's really, really, really not a good way to promote atheism at all in any way, shape, or form, and it's not. It's unfortunate. I think that Matt Dillahunty should not be in that position at all. And
what I think, I'm going to add on to what you just said. What I think's happened with a lot of atheists is, in the beginning, okay, atheists have a position, and so a lot of Christians or whatever will just jump on them. Yeah, they defend themselves. So in the beginning, that's how atheists were defining themselves by their beliefs. But what happens ever since is you get people like Matt Dillahunty who have just made that all about atheism, just to continuously attack and defend and attack the position. But it's okay. You just okay, go home then. You have your day, mate. You're an atheist. Congratulations. What do you want to clap? You want a medal for it? There's no award, just...
Well,
you know what I mean?
One of the things that I find interesting is, and there's going to be two parts to this point I make, so please bear with me.
Yeah, cool.
I find it interesting that, okay, let's use the generic term of atheism as, a lack of belief in God or gods.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting into atheism, that phrase that you said, Cal, that's kind of like me saying when I got into not stamp collecting. Okay, to me it doesn't really make much sense, and I see a lot of the atheists like the shows, the Atheist Experience, and all this stuff where what they mainly deal with, and the majority of these conversations are about how they disagree with the description or their perception of God. Not necessarily, they can't disprove. All they can do is point out their objections to their perception of God. And then they use that projection to put down people who believe. And I was under the impression that atheism was supposed to be about helping equalize the legal standpoint, the social standpoint in regards to gay marriage, rights for minorities, and to stop a religious oppression. But I don't see that. I don't see the atheist community coming together on a political platform. As a matter of fact, most atheists I know in this country don't vote. They say they don't bother to vote because their vote is meaningless. So this is my problem with this so-called atheist movement. It tends to be more focused on disagreeing and bad-mouthing God, and in turn arguing and insulting religious people, as opposed to making any positive change towards minorities or putting a stop to religious oppression.
Awesome, man. That was excellent. G-Man, would you like to continue on that thought, or have your own input onto your own thought?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, man. Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. Since I got a reputation of only talking about atheists all the time, due to some recent events, I'm going to pick on both sides. I think, especially in the because I agree with everything that IG just said. I think in the debating arena, I think there's intellectual dishonesty on both sides, both on the atheist side and on the theist side, especially Christian side. On the Christian side, I'm sorry. And the reason why I believe this is because having these Google Hangouts and listening to these debates, I notice that when an atheist makes a point, when it comes to science, like for example, this whole thing about how old the Earth is being 6,000 years old. I don't think there's any real biblical proof that this Earth is 6,000 years old, but
Or
because
scientific.
it's I don't believe that there's any biblical proof for the fact that the Earth is 6,000 years old. But I think there might be some scientific evidence that the Earth might be older than 6,000 years old. It took some digging and asking certain questions to be able to see this. But I definitely think the Earth is older than 6,000 years old now.
Yeah.
How old is it exactly? I don't know. But I think the Christians need to be a little bit more honest when we're entering debates with the atheistic community, because it doesn't help us when we just don't say we don't know. I think it's something that we need to learn how to say. It's like we don't know, and we would love to find out. On the other side, the atheist community, I like to see the same thing, to see more intellectual honesty out of them when they claim they read the Bible for like 15 years or 20 years, and then you ask them a question about something that we would consider simple, and they don't even know the answer. So that would be one of many things.
I'd just like to put a bit of input in for the theists out there, because I believe this happens a lot, unfortunately, from the atheists. And at the first, I was a bit like this myself, is that a lot of people, when they convert or deconvert or whatever, there's going to be a lot of anger one way or the other. And unfortunately, to begin with, there will be that anger and it's going to come across, and then some people will carry it and some people will let it go. And I have a feeling that a lot of the arguments where you see where people will shut people down or try and embarrass someone's intelligence or try and insult them in some way that they don't feel like the other person can defend themselves by doing, or they'll take a moral a road that cannot really be approached from the other side because it's there's no way you could. That to me is just personal feelings that they're carrying across, that I can hold this over you. So I feel like that I see it as well sometimes with some theists, but not many. Is that I will say theists don't seem to hold a lot of anger towards atheists. I would say that you often see the atheists will carry that anger, and they'll just run with it. And I think even I'd say Richard Dawkins would be a good indicator of that. Like a lot of the stuff he does, it almost seems like he's angry at something. Like,
have you not met Alex Botten yet? That's my input right now.
I have not. I should.
The very first time I saw him, I was freaked. I was like, "Oh man, this guy is sick in the head."
Well, the other person I was thinking of,
but
I thought she's already got too much mention already on this channel, was Kate Bionic Dance, or as I like to refer to her as Bionic Baby, but that's another story for another day. But all right, no worries. So I don't know. I guess you could have open floor. I guess now. I mean, everyone's had a bit of a chance to have their input. So if anyone feels that they want to take the conversation a certain direction,
I could make a comment if no one else is. If everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. How about you,
Cool.
G?
Yeah. Well, for me, this whole lack of belief thing, I think, is the atheists tend to say is a really, really dishonest move. I hate the wording of it, and I hate everything. I hate all the connotations of it as well and what it implies. Because for me, I don't understand what lack of a belief means. I don't really understand the concept behind it that much. But I don't classify myself as having a lack of a belief in God. I define myself as having a belief in God. I believe that he does not exist, and I can give you evidence for that. I would never claim to know that I don't know God exists, because that would be a pretty difficult thing to prove philosophically. But when you hear people like Matt Dillahunty or anybody else saying that they lack a belief, for me that just means that they're absolutely terrified of having to defend their position, and they want to leave the burden of proof on the theist 100% of the time, which I think is cowardly. I think it's really, really cowardly. I have absolutely no problem with taking that burden. I do not mind. I can see G-Man nodding his head there. He knows what I'm saying. It's a really, really dishonest position to take, because if you lack a belief in something, don't talk about it.
That's right.
Don't get involved in it. What does it matter? I don't lack a belief. I do not lack a belief when it comes to when it comes to God. I have an active belief in God. I believe that He does not exist based off the evidence that I've seen, and sometimes the lack of evidence that I've seen. But it's got absolutely nothing to do with lacking a belief. I'm not afraid to defend my position on anything, and I'm definitely not going to let the theists have all the fun by them defending my position. Defending a position. I love defending positions.
Okay, Cal, how can you prove, or how can you support how can you provide evidence of the lack of the existence of something without first imposing your own perception or bias on what you're disproving?
Well, that's difficult. That's really, really difficult. I mean, everyone has a bias, and we try our absolute best to separate ourselves from our biases. But that's very, very difficult. But for me, if what you're asking is, and correct me if I'm wrong, how I would justify believing that God does not exist, is that what you're asking, Angie?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that all that you can really do is provide evidence that the God you imagine doesn't exist.
Well, it depends on if we're talking about specific.
How would you be able to provide evidence that the God that I believe in does not exist?
I would have to. I would first have to have a conversation with you that would probably last quite a while on what parts, where you get your definition of God from, and if it's from the Bible, what parts of the Bible, and then how you interpret that, and then we could have a conversation about that.
Right.
And this kind of general kind of every theist, every Christian's going to believe in the Bible, and they're all going to agree on the same parts is categorically false, because they don't. If every single Christian on the planet agreed on how to interpret the Bible, or which parts were meant to follow and which parts were not meant to follow, there would only be one Christian church. But there are thousands of different denominations of Christianity, which means that there is some subjectivism, I think, if that's the word. There is some subjectiveness that comes into believing in God, and believing in God based off the Bible.
Okay,
so it would be difficult. Yeah, first I wanted to establish that you have to assume the qualities before you can make an assumption on whether those qualities discount or disprove the existence of God. So let's go to the next step, and I'd ask you, what is your biggest objection or your biggest proof that the God of the Christian Bible cannot or does not exist? For me, it would be his characteristics, his qualities. Omnipotence is inherently illogical, and it doesn't work. Omnipotence can be shattered pretty quickly with a couple of very, very simple. Well, could God create a rock so heavy that He couldn't lift it?
Well, that's an illogical question.
Not at all.
Yeah, it is. It's an illogical question.
How so?
Because God would not do something illogical.
Yeah, but could He? I'm not saying He would. I'm saying could He create a rock so heavy that He couldn't lift it? Because omnipotent means all powerful.
Right.
Having no restrictions on your power.
No, but see, this is a I thought you were going to go here, and this is an illogical question that doesn't prove or disprove anything. What you've come up with is a paradox. That's it.
Yes, but it's, if you're going to believe in something that's all powerful, if you're going to believe in something that's omnipotent, but then omnipotence is actually self-contradictory, then to me that implies that implies that you can't use logic and reason to believe in God.
No, what that means is that you've created this paradox that's an illogical paradox to try to disprove something that cannot be disproven by using vernacular, by using the definition of a word, the play on a word. This doesn't disprove God. This is an illogical question that's circular.
No. It's not that I created the paradox within omnipotence. It's the paradox is there.
You're pointing out an illogical paradox.
Yeah. Yes, precisely.
And disprove a quality based on the definition of a word.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to do. That's exactly what I did.
So, but that does not disprove God. All that does is show. No, wait, hold on. All that does is show a weakness. Hold on. That shows a weakness in our ability to accurately define God. That's all that does.
Yeah, but I say for clarity, I never stated that I could disprove God. I just gave reasons why I don't believe that He's true.
Okay, so but basically, my point is that all you've done is shown a weakness in our ability to accurately define God.
Yes.
He said he can't accurately, if I remember correctly, Cal said he couldn't disprove either or. He got great arguments for and against for each one. That's what he says.
Yeah, exactly. It would be impertinent of me. It would be very impertinent of me to try and disprove God.
What do you think?
I think whenever we're trying to understand God, it's important that we bring all of His attributes into the conversation. If all we do is look at God being all-powerful, and you're talking about the God of the Bible, you're no longer talking about the God of the Bible. If you say that God is omnipresent and that's the only thing you're focusing on, then you're no longer talking about the God of the Bible. You have to bring as many of His attributes as possible into the conversation. What IG said was correct. You know, logically speaking, if all I did was focus on the fact that He was all powerful, and Kane said what he just said, then I'm pretty much wasting my time worshiping the God of the Bible. However, because I know about His other attributes, and I know that God, that the Bible openly says what God can and what He can't do. It's in the scriptures. You know, once you know that in advance and you get into a conversation like this, you immediately know what you're hearing is based on half information, not on full information. So I would definitely agree with IG what IG just said.
Can I respond, or is everyone getting fed up with hearing me talk?
Cal, you can respond. That's fair.
Thanks, man. Thanks. If I'm talking too much or hogging the time, just tell me.
No, man, that's fine.
I've got a habit of talking way too much. Would you then say, G-Man, that you could bring in, if you added more characteristics of God or more attributes of God, that it would be able to get round the inherent problems with omnipotence? Like if you brought in the fact that He's omniscient, would that somehow change the statement that I just made about omnipotence?
I can bring in the fact that God's holy for the example that you just gave. For example, you're saying that that if God was all powerful, certainly He would be able to to make a round square or something like that, or something around those lines. Okay, but the Bible says that God cannot lie. Would that mean that He's not that He's not all powerful because God is limited and He can't lie? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that He's holy. It means that God separates Himself from sin. He can't lie because He's holy. Lying is not in His nature. He won't do what's not in His nature to do. He won't contradict Himself. And also something else you need to know about God is that He's not bound to the laws of science. I think the scientific community makes a mistake when they try to understand Him through science when He's not bound by science.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree. Sorry to
interrupt. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was you guys having a great conversation. I just wanted to put my little bit on this. Was basically is that to me, a God of the universe isn't defined as a personal God, and that's where IG says, well, that's what makes you an atheist, is because you don't view the God of the universe as a personal deity. And I don't think I could, because to me, I see ourselves as individuals, I see that we're all capable of, like, even though we might have a path, maybe there is fate, maybe there isn't, maybe we are supposed to do things, maybe we're not. But what I do know is that we do make our own lives, and we do get to make our own decisions. Why should that be subjugated to just humankind? Why wouldn't that necessarily be God as well? Why would he be defined by what was written in a book saying that he has to be a personal God? Why couldn't he or she go out into the universe and find themselves for themselves, I guess, if you will, so if there is such a thought? I mean, I think it goes along the lines of, it goes along the lines of,
what you're talking about is deism.
Okay.
Deism,
or pantheism.
or pantheism. You're talking about a belief in a non-personal God, kind of a hands-off. You know, he kickstarted the universe and then is hands-off. That would be deism, or as Cal said, pantheism.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy with that. That's fine with me, because to me, like, particularly as I study things like the human body, the things that you find out about it, you know, there's a lot. And I know, I think 13 Heathens, or I can't remember, brought up the name of it that came to my mind. I think it was incomprehensible complexity or something like that, where something was so complex.
No, it's called it's called irreducible complexity.
Thank you. Yeah, and that to me, it sort of said a lot, because I mean, even atheists have to admit, like, outright, stone dead, you die. Like, these are I know a few people like this, where they think that when you die, everything's black, and I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty miserable existence, and but also thought that's not accurate to what I believe in, and it's also not what I've experienced in my own life. I don't think so. And I would say that one of the things that really comes to mind would be, I mean, they can't ignore the fact that not everything is, you know, it's not this perfect, like, it's so concrete with the science, it's so concrete with this. It just doesn't work that way. Not in reality. And
well,
you know,
there's something I need to bring to your attention. We've known each other for a fair amount, right? We've known each other 6-8 months or so, and we've spoken quite frequently. And you are not an atheist. You know that, right?
I think
you are a deist.
He's a deist, yeah.
And I think it's important that you admit that to yourself. And don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah, I guess it's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that you're afraid to admit that because you don't want to be ostracized by the atheist community.
A little bit, yeah. I'd agree. It's because, I mean, like I said, I grew up with God, and to me, for that to be completely excluded from my life, it seems ridiculous. Particularly when everything I know about my own life and the world, it just doesn't seem to fit with how things are. There's some things in my life. I could tell you an experience now. I swear to God, like, if there's such a phrase, or what I'm trying to say is, I had this thought in my head, and I said, okay, if I don't get a girlfriend within the next 2 weeks, I'm offing myself. That's what I'm going to do. And I had it all planned out in my head. I'm just going to go to this dam. It's about 200 foot high. Boom, jump off, die. Be done with it. And I was set. And you know what? It felt like I was physically struck by something. It felt like a white beam of light shot through me. And then actually that weekend, I met a girl. So, you know, how about that? I'm not saying that is a miracle or anything. I'm just saying that that's what happened.
Well,
take it however you want.
I would say that was a miracle and that was divine intervention. So
that wasn't the only time that's ever happened.
You're afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say it.
I wouldn't say that. I would say something different, though. But that's what IG thinks. You know what I mean? That's just me. I'm just saying. I'm a bit more of an asshole. Do you know what I mean? So I tend to be more skeptical.
Well, you're a bit more skeptical. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a given for me. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, I don't believe
Well,
in miracles.
someone has got him blocked. G-Man, did you have Muskie blocked?
I don't have
You have a
anyone
guy
blocked.
named
So.
Go Command blocked by any chance?
No, I don't have anybody blocked. I have, I think, JD Kane. That's about it. I don't have nobody blocked. I don't think.
Well, we have a new guest.
No?
That's
We
all
have
right.
a
Yeah, I
new.
was just going to say
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Has anyone here got Go Command blocked because he's blocked and wants to come in and he's a cool guy? He's like, hey, how you doing, guys? He's cool, man.
No, I don't
Yeah,
got.
I haven't
I
got
don't-
anybody blocked on my side, man. I haven't blocked anybody.
My block list is empty. I don't got nobody blocked.
Yeah, this,
Yeah,
is a
me
pretty,
neither, man.
this is a pretty clean slate channel. Nobody's blocked on this channel, so yeah.
Yeah,
we got we got a new guest, Cliff Jumper. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just got up, actually.
Oh, okay, no worries. Yeah, well, today we're just we're sort of going over the I guess the flaws in both atheism and theism, and sort of where we can meet halfway. Whereas we often see a lot of it where it's just like at each other's throats, but I don't really feel like that really reflects how everyone feels about it. So, yeah, if you want to have anything to add to the conversation about it, you can have the floor if you want.
Thank you. Generally, I consider myself to be a pretty laissez-faire kind of guy. You know, if someone's a believer, then that's fine. If someone's not a believer, that's fine. You know, and I just think we've got a right to our own opinions or feelings. You know, the only time I ever get the problem are when people, and it doesn't matter whether it's Christians or arseholes, you know, when people saying, oh, you're living your life wrong because I say so. You know, that's when I get a problem. In all other manner, I really don't mind. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's conscience that you know, that I think is most important.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I could respond to that.
Right.
I think to a degree there it is actually justified to sometimes say that people are living their life wrong, because I think there are objective moral values, whether you have a god or you don't have a god. I think there are. I think as soon as you admit that morality is centered around human well-being, it becomes pretty simple to say that the way that the Taliban treat women is objectively wrong. And I think it would actually be incredibly disrespectful to the real suffering of women, especially in some places in the Middle East, or well, specifically under the rule of the Taliban. I think it would be disrespectful to them to not actually say what the Taliban are doing wrong to them. I think it is wrong to place women in cloth bags and beat them when they try and escape, and you know, restrict information to them and treat them as, you know, no better than dogs. Really, I think it's okay and completely rational to actually say that some people are living their lives wrong. If wrong means they're not maximizing their own well-being or the well-being of others. And when I say well-being, I don't just mean physically. I mean psychologically as well. I think there's two. It's a general term, well-being, but I think it's easy to define in a broad sense, and then you can kind of get more and more specific, and you can narrow it down with just intellectual discussions and just general conversations like we're having now. But yeah, I think for the most part, if someone's the only time I have a problem with religion or individual theists is when they try and tell me that I'm living my life wrong by not believing in God, and that I don't have a sense of right and wrong, and that I don't know how to love my kids, and I have no basis for loving my kids, and without God I may as well just go out and rape and pillage and murder people because I don't have a divine interventionist telling me what to do. I think it's insulting to human beings. I think it's insulting to everybody to actually to even just even hint at that. I think we do. You don't need a God to be moral, because that would just mean that you were only moral because someone told you to be, which in my opinion means that you're immoral. It means that if your God tells you how to be, what's right and wrong, if that God came back in some kind of rapture type thing and told you that raping children was okay, then you'd have to go, well, okay, well, raping children is okay because my moral dictator has just told me that. I'm not saying that would actually happen, but it's a serious problem that you have to. You have to consider it.
I think I could subscribe to that idea. I mean, I do think that the human equation is always the important one. It's almost the equivalent of the medical Hippocratic oath: do no harm. That's the first duty.
I was just going to say, just after you, Cliff, I can see that G-Man has something he wants to say, so I'll let G-Man take off after that, and then Nicholas L, you will have the floor straight after G-Man.
Yeah, isn't that called divine command theory? I think that's what JD's calling it. He's calling it divine command theory, that he has these natural morals living inside of him, and the only reason we have any morals is because we are obeying God.
Yeah,
that's an interesting theory, but I don't believe that's factual at all.
But you don't believe in divine command theory?
I believe in obeying commandments of God, but I also believe in obeying rules and regulations from our government, though, too. So
I'm glad you said that.
But the thing about this is this, and my stance is radically a little bit differently than I think from most of the people in this room. See, I genuinely believe that mankind is basically just it's just bad or evil, okay? And mankind is capable of doing some pretty good things, and that's because God has written his quote-unquote morality or his law on our heart. We know what's right and we know what's wrong within ourselves because God put it there. Now, I can understand like how how the atheist community will feel when they got a presuppositionalist. I think that's what you're talking about. The presuppositionalists will say that without God, you don't have a sense of morality or anything. I can understand how you guys feel about that. But at the same time, if you are going to say that you're a moral person, I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this, but if you are going to say that you're a moral person, then there has to be some type of a foundation for it. If it's empathy, then you should be able to go pretty deep into it. If it's something else they're saying, empathy, if it's logic and reasoning, then you have to be able to go deep into it. But for the Christian, not only can we say that God is saying that this is right and this is wrong, but we can go pretty deep into why this is right and this is wrong because we have a basis for our morality. Again, I can see why people would get offended by people saying that because generally, before I was a Christian, I thought I was a pretty all right person too. I didn't need to read my Bible to know that that lying was wrong, or I didn't need to know that my Bible to know that stealing was wrong, or taking, or the idea of adultery or something like that. I didn't need to have a Bible to tell me that. I just knew it. I just knew from within me that it was wrong. And as a Christian now, I didn't have a logical reason for that before that. I just thought I was a good person. But as a Christian now, I know that, or rather, I accept the idea that the reason why I know these things are wrong now is because God says that they're wrong. But I had this stuff before I was a Christian, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We've got a new person in the room, I think.
Yeah, Nicholas.
Well, hey guys,
if he wants to talk, you can talk.
I'm gonna drop out and go to bed. I gotta get up and go to work in about 6 hours.
Okay, no worries, man. Well, thanks for joining us too.
And enjoy the rest of the conversation, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, no, I wanted to. So if Nicholas, if you're you can talk if you want, but if you don't say anything, I'll let Cliff Jumper finish off his what he was saying before.
I apologize.
If you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Loud and clear, buddy.
Thanks. I thought that G-Man had a Hangout, so he gave me a link. So I'm not sure what you're talking about really. So.
Oh, okay. We were just talking about the flaws with both theism and atheism, and sort of where everyone's gone off on the wrong foot, and where we can all sort of meet in the middle, and hopefully maybe even bring up a new way of looking at things. But that's going to be difficult because I think a lot of things.
Because quite frankly, all of us are it, and it's everyone, man. When I say everyone, I mean everyone. And it's just, we've all had enough. Do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And the most ridiculous things I've heard from both sides, and it's just getting dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. And obviously something's going to break soon. Something's going to happen. So before it ends up like that, it's just better off everyone starts thinking a little bit more in depth and a little bit more rational and have a little bit more empathy, and instead of being hard-headed and hot-headed and yelling and screaming with each other and these sort of things, maybe this isn't the way, because this is what's been happening now. And I can understand with atheism, man, that atheism had the need to defend itself in the beginning, especially through the last decade of the internet. But it's now over, man, to the point, you know what I mean? And it isn't just over because Hitchens died and Dawkins is getting old. It's just over because all the debates have been done. It's been done to the point it's been circular every 5 years, every decade, every 5 years, every 3 years, every 2 years, to every year, now to every 6 months and almost monthly. The same arguments are getting circular, so it's getting old.
Yeah. I agreed. Sorry, before I just want to make a quick point before someone else has their turn. You know what? Actually, I've completely forgotten what my point was. It was probably going to be blinding and change all your lives, and you would just worship me as a god if I'd said it. But I've completely forgotten it, so I'm just going to let someone else take the mic.
Well, I can. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if anyone's itching, just get it out.
Yeah, I can fill in. I didn't see the Rose guy here. Is it Biggie who spoke last?
Yeah, that was me, man.
Yeah, that was great. But I agree that Richard Dawkins is a little. He's a hard atheist, and he comes off a bit strong, you know. This meaningless, pitiless, indifferent crap he's
and a lot of people don't like that either, man. Just sorry, you can continue, but I'm just saying a lot of people don't like that, man, and a lot of atheists as well.
Yeah, true.
I'm one of. I don't like how he comes across. He comes across as arrogant and rude to me.
Yeah.
I think that's probably because he's got such a nice English accent.
Probably.
You were finishing off a point earlier, Cliff Jumper, before I accidentally cut you off, or I felt like I had to. Is there anything you'd like to add that you didn't get a chance to say before?
Well, I have to apologise. I had to nip off and get a quick drink. So the last thing I heard was G-Man saying that he thinks that the Bible is a definition of morality. Has an element of morality, and he put it in our hearts or something. I may have misquoted that.
I can repeat it if you like.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, what I was trying to say was I can understand how atheists feel when presuppositionalists say to them that without God you don't have a basis for your morality. That's pretty much what I was saying. And I said that while I understand this, I remember before I became a Christian that I understood that lying was wrong. I understood that stealing was wrong. I understood that that adultery was wrong, you know, things of that stuff and whatnot. I didn't know nothing about the Bible or anything like that. You know what I mean? But as a Christian, I understand that that God is the one who has written His law in our heart, and He is the one that tells us, you know, what's right and what's wrong. But I also believe that the government tells us what's right and wrong too. You know what I mean? I believe any authority figure is the one that tells us, the person who has the moral ability to tell us what is right and what is wrong. I believe you need an absolute something to be able to tell you that something is right or wrong. Atheists like to use empathy or logic and reasoning and other things to be their basis for morality. And depending on who you're talking to, if you're talking to a presuppositionalist, they might try to ask you what the basis for this, what's the basis for that, and what the basis of that is. But I can understand like how the atheist community would feel about that, because I knew what was wrong, you know, before I became a Christian. It just my worldview has changed, and that's kind of evolved since then, since I became a believer.
Well, I would like to add is that I don't think anyone really knows what's right or wrong until it becomes a problem or until it becomes an issue in society. For example, a lot of things that have been considered a problem now weren't back then, and the only reason is because people didn't see a problem with it, or it didn't appear be any issues, and that's why I think like when we take things like religious text and say, oh, this is wrong because they said this back then. Well, it's like, well, that was their society back then, but the overall goal back then is the same now. And they wanted the right thing for their community. They didn't want people to go get hurt. They wanted to make sure everyone was looked after, that everyone was fairly treated, and things like that. And no matter how you look at it, if you really look at what they were doing and their society structure, that's what it fits with. In my mind, that's what it fits with. So whether or not you disagree or not, I don't know, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I would actually disagree with that quite strongly. I think the Bible actually promotes quite a lot of immoral things that were definitely. I don't think what's moral and immoral should be defined by what everyone agrees on, because I think it was in the 1970s, maybe the 1980s in the UK, it was illegal. I think it was called the Buggery Act. I think you can look it up on Wikipedia, and it basically made it illegal for a male to be homosexual and to perform a sex act on another male, to the point where there was actually 1,000 gay men in jail. Wow. In my parents' lifetime, there was actually people in jail, and there was a famous writer that was convicted under this law, and he went to jail, and they offered him to either, I think it was 5 years in jail, maybe even more than that, or it was chemical castration, which was back in the day female hormones, and he took that. They injected him with female hormones, and then he ended up committing suicide. Later, I don't think that was right just because it was a general consensus or the government thought it was right. I think that's wrong. Even back then, people tend to use the excuse of, well, it was the tradition, it was what everyone agreed on, it was wrong back then. You know, it's like we didn't know any better. It's like, no,
I agree. I will concede. I will concede. I was wrong with my statement.
I'm gonna have to say I agree on that, man. Just looking at it objectively on its own, like, yeah, man, it's
That's a fair
I wasn't
point.
just trying to prove you wrong,
really,
Stephen. I was just
I know. But like I said, I'll concede when I'm wrong. So I know I was wrong.
I'd need to look in depth more, but off the hat from what you're saying, yeah, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, I'll get the Wikipedia article up, and I'll put a link in there, and then that way, because I always encourage people to never ever just believe what I say. Just off of them from me saying it.
Same.
It's absolutely insane, because I am 100% a fallible human being, exactly the same as everyone else.
I have a quick question.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I got a quick question, Cal. You said that the Bible promotes a whole bunch of immorality, right? The Bible promotes a whole bunch of immorality. Can you be a little more specific and pick one, not a whole bunch of them, just one immoral act that you said the Bible, or you mean God, or do you mean a particular individual in the Bible? Can you be a little more specific about what you're talking about? Just one thing.
This is a difficult. I'm not trying to get myself out of this. This is just it's a difficult thing to talk about with a theist, because, like I said before, a lot of theists disagree on which part of the Bible is God's word, and like some people think it's all God's word and you should live it all. Some people think it's some of it. Some people think it was made for this was the laws for the Jews. This was the laws for other people. So it's a difficult subject to talk about, because some Christians will just go, that's not what I believe, and then it's like, okay, right, fine, you don't believe it, then we'll just move on to something else. But for me, slavery is a big issue in the Bible, a very, very big issue. I think I think it's Exodus 21. Chapter 21 verses 20 and 21 that basically makes a loophole for slave owners to beat their slaves. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the quote. I think it goes something like this: if a slave owner beats his male or female slave to death, and to beat the male or female slave with a rod and they die under their hand, they're to be punished. But if the slave survives a day or two afterwards, they are not to be punished because they are their property. I don't think anyone could possibly look at that and think, that's cool. You know what I mean? We'll go with that. And I don't think, and people, secularists, atheists, religious people, fundamentalists, whoever, will try and say, oh, well, you're not looking at that in context. context. If there's a context that makes it okay to beat slaves, I don't want to know the context. I'm not interested in it. I don't want to know the context that makes it okay for that to happen.
Okay, and my response to that would be is that it's important to know the context. It's important to actually study the topic, because when you get into a conversation with a Christian, let's say, for example, we approached you and we're talking to you about Jesus, and you obviously don't want to believe because you have a lack of belief in a God or gods or whatever, right? And then you say, well, I think your God is immoral. What do you mean by that? And then you'll say, well, in Exodus chapter 21, there's a loophole how you can keep somebody a slave, and you're talking to someone who's studied. The difference is the Christian's going to be more prepared to go into the actual topic, whereas you're going to have a very superficial understanding about it. Okay?
But
everything that you said regarding Exodus chapter 21, if you look at it on the surface, you would have a point. However, when you take in consideration culture, people, the fact that is nothing like the transatlantic slave trade, and you take the fact that they had different laws than we have today, then you look at it from a different light. Because in Exodus chapter 20, when you're referring to the so-called loophole, where it says that if you came in by yourself, then you can leave by yourself, and you came in with a wife, you can leave with her. But if your master gave you the wife, and you had kids with them, then when you leave, you know what I mean, you can't leave with them. But but if the master, if he loves his master, you can stay with his family and everything.
Yes.
That's not a loophole. That's not a loophole. There's a lot of components to the Jewish law that you have to actually refer to. I'm actually going to upload a video today talking about that. There are laws regarding this that actually protects the slave to make sure such things like that won't even happen. For example, a Jewish person couldn't marry somebody who was a non-Jew. You know what I mean? And if that person if that slave owner offered them somebody who was a non-Jew, it would actually be a punishment if that person decided to marry that person. And plus, the Jew would know in advance before the person even gave him the wife, what the consequences would be. So there's a lot more to that story than what you're talking about.
But let me ask one question. Does anybody in this room think there's a context that would make it okay to beat a slave with a rod for any reason? Does anybody think there's a context that would make that okay?
I think it's bigger than that. I think that the idea of owning anybody as property is immoral.
Yeah.
I don't, I mean,
absolutely.
It's fine, the idea of, a culture from a long time ago, but those there's no justification for this kind of thing anymore. You can't justify the rules from several thousand years ago. You just can't justify that. It's, know, and the thing about it is, it kind of goes back to what G-Man said earlier about, sort of morality being enshrined in our hearts or something, I don't think that God enshrined it on our hearts. I mean, this is my personal opinion, so, but I don't think that happened. I think that we have evolved in our society to say that kind of thing is unacceptable anymore. Those may have been the rules that people may have lived by, 1,000, and even a few hundred years ago, but we've said, no, we have evolved our morality to say the ownership of other people as property is wrong. And on top of that, we've then gone and added other layers saying that, black people, should have the rights of everybody else, and poor people should have the rights of everyone else. They should all be able to vote and things like that. So, human rights has evolved as we have evolved, our societies, our cultures. And the thing about it is there are parts of the world, a bit like what Cal was saying earlier, such as the Middle East and things like that, where women are still considered property and are still beaten and curtailed. And those are parts of the world that need to evolve their morality.
So
precisely.
So my question for you, Cliff Jumper, would be is that I see you're on my side now, that you believe in moral absolutes. And when did this happen? Have you always been a moral absolutist?
Well, I mean, when I was a child, I didn't really understand these kinds of things. So always is an interesting point of view. I suppose since I've thought, I think about these things and then, decide what I think is right. So the difficulty is
wrong. So rape is always wrong then?
Well, I think subjecting someone else to your own needs is wrong.
Very good, very good. So you would say adultery. You'll say adultery is always wrong, right?
My opinion, yes.
Okay, cool, cool. And I hate to do this to you. Now you
Okay.
admitted slavery, adultery, and rape was all absolutely 100% wrong. Based on what?
Well, there's a part of it which is based upon the law. You know, the laws we have today, things like that. But also, there's a kind of an element of how are you going to live in a society where you break the rules, whether it's actual laws or whether it's just etiquette. You know, having an affair with your best friend's wife, not cool. You know, is it
but
illegal?
not against the law.
No.
Yeah.
Is it wrong? Yes. So I don't think there is some kind of divine, you know, idea behind it. I just think that my morality says, no, that's not cool. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it comes down to human well-being.
My own personal way of thinking is I probably would never date or marry my best friend's sister or something, because you know it kind of leads, if that marriage doesn't work out in the end or whatever, you know, or the relationship breaks down for whatever reason, you know, we just work out we're mutually incompatible and it's not going to work, so we break up. You know, whether married or not, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like, yeah, is my friendship with my friend more important than getting my end over? You know, yes. So let's get rid of that as a factor.
Okay.
You know?
Since you believe in these absolutes, then and you're getting this partially from the law, and you're getting this from an authority figure, then you can understand why it's not so hard to believe why a Christian would be the same way, considering our lawgiver is God. And one more little comment I'd like to make about the whole slavery issue again, about this being wrong to own a person under all circumstances. I don't agree with that. And the reason why is because if you know about slavery in the Bible, some people willfully wanted to be slaves. You got to understand a couple of things. Number one, in the Bible, they wasn't living in a welfare state like we are in the United States. Okay, I don't know what it's like over there where you live at. But here in the United States, we live in a welfare state. The government pretty much bails us out for pretty much everything. If we need money, we can get Social Security, we can get food stamps, we can get all these things and whatnot. And back then, you couldn't do that. If you owed somebody and you didn't pay them back, and you were thrown in a dungeon, you weren't thrown in these correctional facilities that we have, are like mini mansions compared to some of these other nations and whatnot. You know, back then you were thrown in a dungeon if you didn't pay back your debts. Your property was taken from you. Okay. Back then, if you owed somebody and you were homeless and you don't have a roof over your head, you can willfully decide to become a slave. You have a roof over your head, you have clothes on your back, you have food to eat. And after 6 years, during the 7th year or the year of Jubilee, whichever came first, you know, you could be released, and they would actually give you things as you left. So there's a lot more to it than just like, you know, just owning a person.
Can I just interject here? Nicholas has been patiently waiting. He just wanted to get his point out, and then I'll leave you guys to converse again. So don't worry. I just wanted him to be able to get his speech out.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
It's your Hangout, so no problem. First of all, you can probably hear that I'm not from England or United States. I'm from Sweden. So if I stutter like a madman, I apologize for that. I don't know any of you except for G-Man. I've spoken to him earlier, and he's a quite nice guy, even though he's a creationist. I'm sorry. I think it was Cliffhanger who spoke before. He made a small error. And I think you take this the right way. You said that you think that we have developed morality. That's wrong. We have developed morality.
Well,
okay,
I mean that as defining myself.
Yeah, it was quite. It was a more of a joke. I agree with you completely. But we have developed our morality. We don't get it from above or something like that. First off, I gotta say that the thing between theists and atheists on YouTube isn't. Some of us we say harsh words and whatnot. I personally don't. I make fun of atheists, and atheists make fun of me, and it's quite it's like a back and forward thing. So people have a need to express themselves, and I think YouTube is a great place. So not everybody is like, I'm gonna kill you, man. So that's that. And I gotta say to G-Man, it's quite strange that of course you can explain away slavery and Elisha and the bears. Oh, they were not children, they were youths and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's quite strange because it's quite strange that biblical literates usually accepts every single word to the dot. If you ever heard Nephilim Free or Shock of God or anybody of those nuts, you know that they take it literally. So of course you can explain away these things, but if you want, and it's so strange that you every time you have to say that, okay, is it immoral to rape a child? Of course it's immoral to rape a child, but if you ask G-Man, is it immoral to kill, he will probably say yes. But God kills every what not worse in the Bible. And if you want to hear something immoral in the Bible, how about the flood? He regretted creating the humans, so he killed them all, including plants and animals. Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier on, man. Yeah. I mean, like that's like I was the only reason it sprang to my mind because I was just I've began reading the Bible from cover to cover, and I'm about halfway through Genesis right now. And yeah, I mean, Noah's flood is definitely one of those things. But what I was going to say is, I know it's Stephen's Hangout, but we've slightly got off topic, and we might want to think about getting on, because slavery is a good issue and all that, but we should probably get back onto bashing atheists a little bit, because that's a lot of fun.
Okay, so since we're getting back on topic about like the problems between atheists and Christians, again, I think one of the ways we can solve this real fast is by study. I think if a person picks up the Bible and actually studies these particular topics and asks the same questions that they're asking on YouTube while they're alone reading and studying that Bible, a lot of these questions can be answered. You know, it's just that simple. It really is.
I actually think that there is something that, and don't worry about who's Hangouts who's. As far as I'm concerned, conversations take their own path sometimes. So if they do tend to head that way, then maybe it's a good thing. But so long as the main point is met, I guess. I felt like we've done that tonight as well. But I mean, if I was going to say anything like towards what G-Man was talking about, when reading the Bible or anything like that, just remember that you don't have to look at it and go, oh, this is Christianity, as look at these magic fairy tale stories, or look at this Muslim book Quran telling me all these fable stories. Like, it doesn't matter if it's you're trying to take away a meaning from it, then take that meaning away from it without getting angry about it or something like that. I don't know if I had a train of thought and then I lost it. So yeah.
I think you were trying to say that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen. But I think you're trying to say that when reading the Bible, that Christians don't need to add to or take away or try to defend it or try to justify some of the things that we're reading. Is that what you were trying to say?
Well, in a way, yeah, because I think, remember, is we're not talking about now. We're talking about back then. And I mean, the way I look at it is it's not like we're responsible for the actions of what happened in the past. Christians are not responsible for the actions of Christians in the past. Atheist Muslims, they're not. None of those people are. None of us are. We can only be responsible for ourselves and what we take away from something. So if we sit there and point at what's happened in the past and say, oh, well, your God's a big meanie, blah, 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 it's like, well, hang on a minute. Is that really what you believe? Like, when you look around the world, is that what you believe, what you have in your life, what you're trying to achieve? Can you honestly turn around and say that you're thinking that there's a big meanie out there that's going to try and put you down? Because I don't think so.
Well, that's the thing.
One thing that I will... Sorry. Do you mind if I go cliff jumper?
I've got a very quick thing that's in my head.
Cool.
I'll forget otherwise. The thing about this is that you have to remember that a lot of the Christians who are trying to justify their opinions are using Old Testament, the Bible, things of that nature, New Testament, to try to justify their opinions on all sorts of things. So if someone's going to use that as a tool to have a political opinion, so give you a simple example. If someone is pro-death in America, death penalty is still one of those hot topics. If you're pro-death penalty, you'll say, oh, it says in the Bible, eye for an eye. And if you're anti-death penalties, they'll say, it says in the Bible, forgiving trespasses, that kind of thing, you know. So effectively, if someone is going to use the Bible to justify a political opinion, then, you know, that is when it becomes relevant.
Yeah, I would agree. But where I would say it goes off is the fact that we would probably go down to that individual's character as a person. For example, what you said about eye for an eye or forgive, and I think that it would. This is only what I'm thinking. Is just that if it came down to it, individually we can't take Christians or Muslims or atheists as a whole. We have to say, right, you know, you've given your opinion, so we're going to just tell you why this is the way that it is now, and you accept it or you don't accept it, or you can have your say in the day of court if that's what you want. End of the day, it's I would say it just comes down to an individual level, and you can't get angry at a whole community and say, oh, they're holding up this political agenda because that's what it said in the Bible or Quran. I would say you'd have to say this small group or this single person. I mean, I think a good example of that is that Westboro Baptist Church that just lost the head of the state. But yeah, I mean, like, when you think about it, they're trying to hold up a political agenda from a single thing. We couldn't put all Christians under their banner. We could just say that they call themselves Christians and they read the Bible and they have their own agenda, and we should just ignore them. And that's all I'll say about that. So.
One thing I will say is, though, when it comes to judging an entire group, like all Christians and all Muslims and stuff like that, I think there is some stock in that, because these people do choose to be part of this to be part of this group. Like, it's no one's in. Well, actually, sometimes people are forcing them, but let's just say that you live in a society where you don't have to actually worry about being shot in the head, or ostracized from your community because you don't believe in something. These people still choose to be part of that, and the phrase "fly with the crows and get shot down with the crows" does spring to mind, because you could use that argument to justify just about anything. Because if I was to say that I'm a member of the KKK, right, but I'm not racist, I think that everyone that isn't white, everyone that isn't white, English or American or whatever, has all the same rights, and I just don't agree with anything that the KKK do, but I like the tag, then absolutely that person should be demonized, and absolutely that person should be counted with that person should be counted in with all the members of the KKK, because they chose to be part of that. And if you choose to be part of something, then you're going to be associated with it, and it's just kind of common sense to me. And the other thing that should be mentioned is that if, let's just say, when it comes to Islam, Muslims, not all Muslims are suicide bombers, obviously, right? That kind of goes without saying. But if Muslims have such a big problem with radical Islam, they should be doing as much as they possibly can to distance themselves from that kind of bullshit. They should be doing every single thing in their power to say, this is not how we practice Islam. We do not practice this. We have nothing in common with these people, and we want to distance ourselves. But the problem is, distancing themselves from that would mean that they'd have to refute some of their own texts, their own religious texts. That's the problem when it comes to that, because the Quran does, unfortunately, promote martyrdom. So if they were to say, no, I don't think it is a good idea that people are blowing themselves up to get 72 virgins, it's like, well, so how did you get there then? It's like if you're going to say that, then you're disagreeing with your own religious text, which is supposed to be the infallible word of a perfect deity. So why are you even associated with this at all if you have to so strongly disagree with it? Could you not just call yourself something else? Or could you maybe not even call yourself anything at all? Maybe just say that you just believe in Allah, but you don't believe that book's the original text. You don't believe in the textual side of it.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a Muslim with us to answer it. So, I mean, I guess the best thing I could probably say would be, if there are Muslims that watch this, yeah, maybe you should review that, because I agree with Cal, and you know, he's brought up a pretty good point for you to consider. So I'll just leave you to mull that one over. And yeah.
I mean, bearing in mind as well.
I'm sure that within Islam there are the equivalent of the Christians who sort of follow the general feeling of it. Maybe they're I'll follow the kind of example that Jesus gave, not the Old Testament style.
Like Methodist churches and stuff like that, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
I mean, I actually live in a somewhat Muslim community. There's a couple of areas of town close to me that are, you know, largely Pakistani Muslims, and they're really nice people, you know, and many of them, you know, when, for example, last year we had an incident where a soldier was killed by some Muslim extremists, and
was that Lee Rigby?
Yeah, and they, you know, they were completely outraged by it, because they're saying this kind of thing does not represent Islam. You know, it's supposed to be about peace and things like that. You know, and again, it's the equivalent of the, you know, it's the equivalent of people who are going to use, you know, the Bible to justify awful things if they're politically minded for that. You know, and like I say, this is. Sorry, go ahead. Go on.
So, well, one thing that I'll say is, if G-Man's going to be heading off, I'll leave my point until we've said our goodbyes, because I don't want him to just have to leave when I'm in the middle of a point. Or are you sticking around for a little bit longer, G-Man?
No, I'm about to leave now.
All right, cool. Well, I'll wait until I can elaborate my point properly, and I'll
saying to me,
yeah, I'll just say it was a pleasure speaking to you again, and I wish you all the best, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for coming with us tonight. I feel that you've proposed very good arguments tonight, and I think it will give people something to think about. I think that's really what we want to leave people.
All right. Yeah, Stephen, if you can leave me the YouTube link over.
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
right.
I will, absolutely. And if you guys want, we'll wrap this up in about 10 minutes anyway, because then that will give it for about 2 hours, so that's pretty good time frame. So thank you for being with us tonight, G-Man. Yeah, I'll make sure to share the link. I'll make sure that you guys, I'll send you the link, G-Man, so you'll be able to pass it on. If you want.
All right, talk to you guys later. All right.
Good night.
See you later, man.
Yeah.
Man, take it easy, pal.
Take care, man. Bye, G-Man. I must also leave, so because it's I got stuff to do. So thank you very much for having me, and please share the link. My YouTube name is Evidence for You. So
okay, no worries. I'll make sure to find you. And thank you so much.
I hope to talk to you later. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry you couldn't get as much.
No problem. Okay, take care, man. Bye bye.
Okay, you too. Catch you later.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say quickly just before we wrap this up is that there is a general misconception going around that Islam is a religion of peace. Unfortunately, it's not. It's actually so strongly not a religion of peace that it's actually just straight up 100% dishonest to say that it is. It's just not true. Again, it's a contextual thing. Someone could say that if you only pick out a couple of isolated quotes from the Quran, you could use it to spin anything. But it's like what G-Man was saying earlier on when he was trying to justify slavery in a certain way. You can't justify owning another human being as property then, in the future, or now. It's just wrong. And you definitely can't justify beating them with sticks. You can't justify that in any way. And it's the same thing with the Quran. I did a video about Islam, and I think I provided about 20 or so quotes that just absolutely advocate violence. 100% advocate that you should be out there fighting. You should be out there fighting everyone that's not a Muslim. So to say that Islam is not a religion of violence is to say that Christianity is not a religion of child sacrifice. It is. The central purpose of Christianity is child sacrifice. That's the point. If you don't think it was right for God to sacrifice His Son for the sins of so that people could sin and be forgiven, then you've missed the entire point of Christianity. You've just dropped the ball.
I'm not really sure what to think. Because when I was a Christian back in the day, I used to think it was just metaphorical. I never believed there was a real Jesus. I never believed that, and if there was a real Jesus, I never believed he had superpowers or anything. And it was just the meaning of the story. I didn't look at it literally and go, "This is real." Like I used to think, no, none of this stuff. Like it sounds all amazing, but come on, like really. I mean, and to have that many followers with people like deities talking to you or whatever, it's sort of like, to me it was like, come on, really, do people follow this rubbish? Like, so we have a guy that's saying he's getting spoken to by God. Most people, even back then, probably would have looked at him like, they're a freaking nutter. Don't listen to that guy, or don't listen to that girl. Just stay away from them. They're bad news.
One of the early signs of schizophrenia is hearing voices in your head, audible voices, and it's actually, unfortunately, that one of the awful side effects of religion is that it means that when a parent hears their child telling them that they're hearing voices in their head, they might not actually see that as a sign of mental health. They will just say, "Well, that's good. That's God speaking to you. That's good. That's what you're supposed to."
I always love it when people say about hearing voices in their head as opposed to their legs.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna use that one. That's good. Yeah, yeah. Hearing a voice, hearing an audible voice in your head. It's like, would you not really be hearing that in your ears?
My legs are telling me to stop walking now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Sorry to go off on a crazy tangent like that. I think the difficulty I have is with the Bible type stuff is that if the Old Testament or things like Genesis and things of that nature, if these are apocryphal stories and that Adam and Eve weren't real people, what's the point in Jesus? And this is the kind of difficulty that I get with this whole topic. That's my primary problem. The fact that, I mean, my personal opinion, and there is basis for this, but my personal opinion is that there was this, this preacher guy, Jesus. He said some righteous things, some things that shook up the system, basically a new covenant. And that, he basically rubbed people up the wrong way and they killed him for it. And then his followers effectively deified him. He wasn't the Son of God, he was just a guy. And that's really all it comes down to. But, because it's had time on its side as well, it's allowed people to say, yeah, I'm not just gonna follow the teachings of the guy, I'm gonna take him as God as well. Yeah. And just that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't
agree.
make any sense.
I agree, and particularly when everyone in today's world, it's hard for them to say that they're really, like, imagine how much it would be, like, what someone would say, and imagine, like, if a deity really did speak to them, if something like that actually happened. Like, do you think that anyone could even cope with that amount of information or the type of impact it would have on someone's life? I mean, I personally think it would destroy someone's life. Like, they'd be, I'm happy, and then deity speak, oh, now what do I do? I'm either going crazy, and then even if it's proven to them, they're like, well, how the hell do I get anyone else to believe this?
Yeah, exactly. Personal proof doesn't prove anything to anybody else. I'm going to make one final point about atheism that I see as being one of the biggest ones, and I'm going to make this point, and then I'm going to go because I think we're going to be wrapping this up quite soon. But a point that I was going to make in my opening statement, but I didn't actually have time to prepare my opening statement and write it down, so I missed a couple of points.
That's my fault. I sprung this on Cal.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I like doing this kind of guerrilla hangout type thing. That's like at the last minute. I love that. I love that shit. It's brilliant. But one point that I'm going to make is that the way that people conduct themselves on YouTube, especially atheists, calling religious people, you're a moron, you're illogical, how can you believe this crap, you believe in fairy stories, you're a child, all that kind of stuff. Would they say that to someone in real life? Would they go up to a Christian, a random Christian that they just started speaking to, and call them an illogical moron? I doubt it. I doubt it majorly. And that's the problem with YouTube atheism. We need to remember that we're speaking to people here. So you just wouldn't do that. The same way that, like, I have a racist in my family, and I don't speak to him in the same way that I speak to other racists, because it's about social dynamics. It's about keeping the peace within your own family. It's about how to conduct yourself with people. And that's one of the most annoying things about atheism for me. They say a bunch of shit online because they're anonymous behind the keyboard, but when it actually comes to real life, no, you probably, if your parents were religious, you probably wouldn't call them a moronic, illogical arsehole. I don't think you would say that, and that's one of the things that pisses me off about it more than anything else. I try to speak to people online exactly the same way that I would speak to someone if they were in my house and we were just sharing a couple of smokes and having a drink and chatting. You know what I mean? I would never dream of speaking to someone the way that Matt Dillahunty does, or Jeff D, or Hitchens used to, and stuff like that. I would never dream of talking to anybody like that. Unless it was a formal debate, that's different. The rules of a formal debate are different from a casual conversation. But that's my final closing statement, so to speak.
Cliffhanger, do you want to have a final closing statement?
Well, this is a tough one because I'm currently embroiled in a discussion of the opposite sense. I made a video 10 days ago, 11 days ago now, where I challenged Jason Burns on the street. He lives in Manchester, I live in Manchester. I met him in Manchester before I discovered these online hangouts.
All right.
And the thing about it is, I was really horrible to the guy. And the reason why I called him a liar and a thief and a bigot and a racist live on the streets. And,
but at least you had a chance for him to be confronted with what he keeps attacking or what he keeps challenging. You were there. He could talk to you directly.
Yeah, the thing about it is, the reason why I did this was on behalf of a Christian. He made an allegation that Fiona Robertson was a stalker, and as a result of that, her son got beaten up. And Jason's response was, I'm walking away from this, I'm not going to accept responsibility. And I was offended by that. And so I went down to confront him. And my aim there was to make him feel like crap. Because I wanted him to... excuse me, my voice is gone. I wanted him to feel how it feels to have someone making terrible allegations, even though what I was saying was true. You know, it had a massive effect on him. He shut down his channel because of this. Okay, he's now saying he's not allowed to preach on the streets of Manchester and things like that, which is not my intention at all. Now, the thing about it is that even yesterday he made a video, and I shall find the quote because I noted it down. Let's see, because I'm about to make a video about it. Where's it gone? No, still looking. Sorry about this.
No, it's okay. Take your time,
man. In his video, he quotes, "It was just madness what this atheist did. I could have been killed on that day because that person was throwing accusations out that an individual could have assaulted and killed me. The kind of accusations that that you throw out, that this individual threw out, could have been taken by someone in public. It was irresponsible and crazy, and it's hypocrisy." This end quote. This is hypocrisy. It's exactly the allegations of stalking he made that Fiona's son was beaten up. So it's nothing to do with him being a Christian, what I'm saying, what I challenged him on. Nothing to do with that at all. It's because he's an arsehole. And this is it. I have a real lack of tolerance for arseholes. It's nothing to do with what you believe as such. It's your conduct that I have a problem with, and that would go for atheists as well. The kind of, I said to Jason a few months ago, I said, look, when you make videos accusing people of things, you're going to get three kind of responses. Or, you know, let's go even make it even more mild than that. If someone goes around making, you know, saying something like, you know, atheists have got no morality because they don't believe in God. Okay, something like that. Now that's pretty strong, but not terribly bad. Okay, and Jason says far worse than that, of course. Now, you know, you're going to get three kind of responses. You're going to get ones that are saying, well, I disagree, and this is the reason why. A polite response. You're going to get a medium response, which is, Jason, you're full of crap, and this is this is the reason why. And then there's going to be the real horrible trolls, which are the ones that Cal was talking about, which is, you know, Jason, you're an arsehole, why don't you go kill yourself? You know, those are the horrible people. You know.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, you know, now those kind of people, the type 3, I will call out as just being arseholes. Type 2, I would say, you know, come on, man, you know, that's, you know, no point in going into ad hominem attacks, you know, challenge him on what he said, you know. So that's the kind of one thing I think we owe it to ourselves to police ourselves, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of way that I would actually encourage everybody to have that opinion. Because if you want, because like calling someone to call him like a fat piece of shit and waste of space and oxygen, that would just be unnecessary. But to call him a bigot, well, it's like, yeah, he is a bigot. That's a fact about Jason Burns. He is.
Oh, sorry. You said fat waste of space. I thought it's just the description there, just kind of.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about anusol. That's my nickname.
Cal talked about you calling someone a fat waste of space, just for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail your.
No, the thing about timing on your part, I'm afraid, D, because we were actually just about to wrap this hangout. Well, we're just about to wrap this hangout up, unfortunately. Bad timing.
Oh well, never mind.
I was just about to say that I think the end statement that will be in my video response, because I'm about to make a video. I had a number of people saying, "Oh, you were too hard on the guy, and you went out to, you know, you took YouTube to real life, and all sorts of allegations." You know, some of them were justified. You know, some of them weren't. So I'm gonna go through them because I made mistakes. I agree to that. You know, so. And this is, you know, there's a couple of lines on the end of my statement that really apply here. And one of them is, but the difference between Jason and myself is that I can learn from my mistakes and alter my approach accordingly. And then the last bit is that my motivation for challenging him in public, and I humiliated him. I really did humiliate him. And although I kind of feel a bit guilty for doing that, I feel that it is justified as well. And the reason
you feel guilty because you're a good person.
Yeah. You know, that I've tried to be nice to him, and I've tried to be nice to him in the past because I care, and I still care. But this time it was rough love, because I wanted him to understand how it feels to have someone making outrageous statements about you publicly. And the thing to remember is that YouTube is more than public; it's worldwide. Maligning comments travel further than your voice can carry.
Yes. Yeah,
but
well said, man.
The other thing, Cliff, is it's not like you go out and do this repeatedly to him. Whereas certain people's behaviour, we see them doing it over and over. So for anyone to judge you just on that video alone is kind of, well, that's not fair because that was a one-off. Yeah. You've said mea culpa, you know, and it's not like you do it repeatedly. It's not like this is your MO. Yeah. You know, whereas certain people, it's like they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Yeah. So we can kind of judge them on. Yeah, we can judge them because it's a repeated behaviour.
I mean, I like to have the discussion. I like to take part in the discussion. I just don't like arseholes.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough, and you know, I've worked with plenty of people that won't tolerate it. Then you should see what they're like in real life. I mean, you see the people that try and push the envelope a bit, and they jump on them so hard. Like people like Jason, like nothing wrong with Jason. He's just a little bit. He needs to get a bit of confidence about him in the right way. Stop, I would say, stop focusing so much solely on religion and move on with your life and start going, well, what else do I need in my life? how am I going to achieve that? I mean, that's what I honestly say. Forget about all this YouTube crap for a while, and just move on for a time being. You know, you can come back to it. He just sort of surrounds himself with trolls. Like, it's just not really surprised that he gets brought down by them because he allows himself to.
I think a good example of this kind of thing would be Ray Comfort, the Banana Man. You know, like he still absolutely advocates that evolution is not real and that the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. But he's had Richard Dawkins, Aaron Ra, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I would imagine, all these people explain to him why the Earth is much older than that and why evolution is real. But he actually has more of a reason to believe in evolution than I do because he's had the best people in the world explaining it to him. So at time after time after time after time after time, he keeps doing it. So eventually you just have to go, you're a moron. You are just being, actually you're more than a moron. You're just deceitful. You're advocating something that you know is not true. You have to know it because you've been explained it millions of times by people that really, really know what they're talking about. You know, and that's what
ignorance, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I would actually, for ignorance and just a really good way of making money for Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort.
Well, yeah, that too.
I think it was Aaron Ra. I think it was Aaron Ra that said whenever he makes a mistake, there's a lot of embarrassment there, and he tries his best to when he tries his best to rectify it. Whenever Ray Comfort says something that isn't true, he gets another $1,000 in his bank account.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't put it any other way, really. But look, guys, I'm gonna have to head off, and spend some time with my family.
We'll have to wrap. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. I know you didn't get a chance to speak tonight, so do you want to give your channel a plug or tell a joke or something?
Videos, tell a joke. No. Might repeat some of the jokes I heard last night, and that won't be.
Stephen, will you send me the link to this so I can share it on Facebook and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. I'll do that for you. I'll make sure.
Yeah, cool, no problem. Just send it to my you subscribe to my channel, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, cool. Just send it on there. That'd be great, man. And thanks for this, man. I've needed it. It's a nice little release. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it's. I know it's a bit hard sometimes. There hasn't been many good discussions going on of late, so that's why I try to set something up that people actually can feel like they're actually, using their brain rather than just getting angry and shouting at one another. So.
Yeah. Oh, this was by far the best hangout I've been involved with, no doubt about that. It was very, very productive, and everyone disagreed in a really calm, rational way. It was brilliant. Loved every second of it. So thanks again, and I'll speak to you guys again soon, and we'll maybe try and do these frequently. I think it would be a good idea. Try and get one done every week or two. I think would be a really good idea.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Goodbye,
awesome.
Carl, and have a great Scottish day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll stop the hangout in 3, 2, 1. Goodbye, everyone.